This week on the Hollywood and Toto Podcast, yes, we have reached peak trigger warning, and it's not even close. And we talked to creator Ethan Nicolle about his new project, This Book Might Explode. Picture everything you loved as a kid, and like that Prego commercial, it's in there.
Welcome to the Hollywood and Toto Podcast. Entertainment news and reviews without the woke Hollywood narrative. Free speech, free expression. Now that's entertainment. And here's your host, award-winning film critic, Christian Toto.
And or cultural stereotypes that are inconsistent with today's standards of inclusion and tolerance and may offend some viewers. Oh man, Saved by the Bell. I almost watched one of the greatest mob movies of all time. Thank you, AMC. You just did me a solid.
How can I ever thank you enough?
Oh, and by the way, Martin Scorsese never reacted to that trigger warning, nor did Robert De Niro. You think those two who have a lot of time with the press get pushed in front of microphones very often? You think they might weigh in on that particular film and the trigger warning, but nope, not a bit. Wouldn't it be great if these amazing artists actually spoke out against these woke overreaches, but they rarely do.
Can't you see I'm busy?
But just imagine these trigger warnings being applied to other films. I mean, when you think about it, almost everything could stand a trigger warning. Remember that movie Mr. Mom from the 80s with Michael Keaton? Mr. Mom includes outdated views on parenting that don't mesh with modern times. You see where this is going? You see why this is a problem? You could picture almost any film, dig in a little bit, find something offensive or different, or if you're just looking at older films that don't perfectly align with today's values, with today's customs, with the way we think today. And voila, trigger warning, there you go.
I'm offended.
It's just despicable. And it's also insulting. It's saying to the viewer that you're not smart enough, wise enough, mature enough to handle the fact that this movie is 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, and it may not exactly line up with today's values. That's what it's saying. It feels like these trigger warnings are on the decline. We haven't heard any more obnoxious ones lately. Disney Plus took them away from Dumbo and Peter Pan, two of their beloved films, which all of a sudden were now not exactly appropriate for modern viewing.
Cover your eyes right now.
So this was a good thing. And, with the decline of woke in general, I thought, hey, maybe trigger warnings are going the way of the 8-track tape. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing? And then I heard about a new one, and it may be the granddaddy of them all, and you'll see why in a second. Now, this came to my attention via the America This Week podcast, hosted by Walter Kern and also Matt Taibbi. They talk about culture and politics, journalism, you name it, two very smart, interesting fellows. And Walter brought up the fact that he had recently picked up a 75th edition of George Orwell's 1984. Classic book. Big Brother, you know the drill, about an oppressive regime, about thought police, about speech police, about government gone wild. It's a classic book. It's a cautionary tale, and it's great for all the reasons why. That's a huge, important milestone in the culture. And wouldn't you know it, with the 75th edition, it comes with 2 extra bonuses. One is a foreword by Thomas Pynchon, one of the best living authors we have today. That's good. Another is another foreword of sorts written by a person who wanted to warn us that the book we're about to read could be triggering. Really. George Orwell, 1984, triggering. The lack of self-awareness is off the charts. The author here is Dolan Perkins Valdez, and this is what she had to say in the foreword about 1984. I'm enjoying the novel on its own terms, not as a classic, but as a good story. That is, until Winston reveals himself to be a problematic character. Whew, but there's more. Winston dislikes nearly all women, and especially the young and pretty ones. Winston's views on women are at first despicable to the contemporary reader. He's the kind of character who can make me put down a book. Well, thank goodness she didn't put down the book. She kept on reading, and then she wrote this amazing, wonderful, necessary trigger warning.
I'm being sarcastic.
And she goes on and on. She also insinuates the book may have some racist elements as well. It is garbage. It is trash. And what an absolute shame that whoever's in charge of the Orwell legacy, whoever's in charge of publishing his books, didn't have the wherewithal to think about, hey, maybe putting a trigger warning in front of this book is absolutely the wrong thing to do. Absolutely a sign of what this book was trying to warn us about. When it comes to two specific pop culture institutions, I thought that they were forever protected against the woke revolution. The first, of course, is Blazing Saddles.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
The 1970s comedy is the ultimate, you can't do that today, you can't say that today, you can't joke about that today. Mel Brooks has been saying that for years and years. Now, Mel Brooks is politically to the left, but he's not really a political creature. He's a comic genius. But he has known for a while that that's the case, and he's been defending his movie for quite some time. And I think he's doing it to make sure that people who might want to tinker with it, get rid of it, insult it, trash it for all the wrong reasons would say, hey, back off. I'm Mel Brooks. I'm a comedy god. You're not gonna touch this one. And for the most part, the woke mob has stayed away from it, which is wonderful. They realize it. They had that little inkling of self-awareness to see how shameful it would appear if they attacked that movie. And I thought that 1984 fell exactly in that category. I couldn't have been more wrong. And Orwellian, the adjective, couldn't be more applicable. Ethan Nicolle has a resume that makes it sound like he's pushing 70. The guy has been busy. Years ago, he created a comic inspired by his little brother called Axe Cop. It was a web-based comic, and it was a smash. It made him a star in a way. But that's just a tiny part of his resume. He's also written for VeggieTales, Teen Titans Go, written multiple books aimed at children. He was the co-host of the Babylon Bee podcast, including being its creative director. Imagine being the creative director of the Bee. That's an amazing gig. He also was part of the Daily Wire Kids Revolution. He co-created the show Chip Chilla, voiced in part by Rob Schneider. He has done a lot of things over the last few years. Busy, busy, busy. But now he's striking out on his own. And his new project might be the culmination of everything he's been doing up to now. The new project is called This Book Might Explode, and it is chock full of games and puzzles and jokes and wacky characters and all sorts of interesting things to spike the imagination of young readers. And of course, there's an interactive element, which we'll get into in a minute. We'll also just talk about what this means and who are some of the creative forces behind it. So what is This Book Might Explode? How did it come about? And how does he find his creative fires burn the brightest? What sparks his imagination? Well, that one caught me by surprise, but let's let Ethan explain it himself. Here's my conversation with Ethan Nicolle. You've known him for so many years on so many different projects, but this might be his best one yet. Ethan, thanks for joining the show. You've got such an eclectic background. You worked on so many different projects with big companies, going solo, all these different ways to create. I'm always curious about the creative individual and the fire in their belly. And I'm just, it's an odd way to start an interview, but do you find that fire still burning as brightly? Is it different today? How has it changed over time? Because you're still a relatively young man, but you've been at it for a while. And I know becoming a father and life and things change along the way. I'm just kind of curious, kind of a state of the union for Ethan Nicolle. What drives you today that maybe is a little bit different than in the past?
Man, that's a big question. And it's interesting because I'm at an interesting moment in my life where I just spent 3 years working at the Daily Wire, the most comfortable I've been in my career I've ever had. I mean, they paid me very well, and it was really nice. Provided a lot for us. Working at the kids department, we created their show Chip Chilla and some other stuff with them. But that didn't work out. So I'm at that, and then that phase where I'm trying to figure out what's next. And as I look back on my life, most of the biggest moments of my life came from moments like this. I created a comic called Axe Cop It happened when I'd been laid off from 2 jobs in the same way. I had 2 full-time jobs, both happened to lay me off in the same week. So I went from, and I was living in SoCal. No, you need money here. And so that moment of hunger came out of that. I had, even before that, my first graphic novel that kind of broke me into the industry was during a time I had just gotten laid off. And I created my first, it was actually my second graphic novel, but it made me an Eisner-nominated comic book creator and got me in the door at pitching at Cartoon Network and things like that. So these moments, and then even, when things ended for me, the Babylon Bee, it was kind of a big moment for me. So I'm kind of at a moment like that. And I know, and I think I'm driven by the adventure, almost the romance of the danger of, it could go wrong, it could all go bad, but taking the chance. It's weird. The weirdest thing is how excited I am by it. And like, I'm not excited by having a really steady paycheck. I'm miserable by when things are like a little too safe and a little too predictable. It's oddly tough for me, which drives my wife nuts because she loves that.
That's so interesting. I was reading an older interview with you and you said something I thought was interesting and certainly even more relevant today than it was at the time. You said something like, there really are no excuses to hide behind if you're a creator in this landscape, because there are so many different platforms, so many different ways to get your vision, your voice, your message out. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because I think what you just said and that old quote is inspirational, where, it's within us to do what we can do and to kind of put our vision out there and take our lumps or be successful or fail, or, it's such a unique place we're living at right now. We can kind of do so much, and a lot of the barriers are just fading away.
Right. I mean, we grew up, or at least I grew up in a time when there were huge gatekeepers to publishing your book and getting any kind of video out there, and YouTube and Amazon have changed that. I mean, there's you can get your video out, you can get your book out, it's hard. It's a super saturated market, but like, you can do it. And so I think that's probably the main thing that I would say. The excuse used to be like, oh, they won't let me in, I have this great stuff, but now you don't have an excuse anymore. But you got to be. The thing is, like, having a company that covers out for you. There's a reason they have a bunch of money going into promotion and marketing and all the work it goes into strategizing and trying to stand out, make your product stand out. You have to take all it on yourself, and that's daunting. Which I'm in the middle of right now for the Kickstarter.
Gotcha. Well, your new project is This Book Might Explode. It's so interesting. It feels like it's a grab bag of these wonderful ideas, but I want to let you share more about it, because I mean, it's your baby. So how would you describe it, and what part of it do you find the most exciting as an artist?
I think for me, this is the culmination of a lot of, like, I mean, I started out on Veggie Tales as as a lead writer on Veggie Tales and story editor. For DreamWorks / Netflix. For 3 years, I worked on Axe Cop, which is more of an adult cartoon, but it was created with my 5-year-old brother. Then going on to being at the Babylon Bee as a creative director, which really meant I took on everything besides the articles. I was doing the videos and the books, animated shorts, video shorts, started up the podcast, which culminated in interviewing Elon Musk at a time when he didn't really do that many interviews. It was crazy.
That's true.
Just a wild ride. And then at Daily Wire, working on their kids' content, and just thinking the whole time, like, I really loved building teams. I loved working with, I have this amazing roster of creatives that are conservatives, that are Christians, that a lot of them, they're working on whatever My Little Pony reboot or whatever there is, because that's what this industry offers. But they all have these great original ideas that they're pitching all the time, and they're not getting made because everything's reboots and remakes or politically motivated or whatever. Like the machine sucks. And so I've had this dream of, like, I know so many great creative. I mean, I know Doug Snaple, created Earthworm Jim. He's a graphic novelist. He makes amazing graphic novels. Right now, he's making his living doing YouTube videos about politics, which I think he's good at that. But it's tragic that he can't, that there's his audience is families. Like, we're a family oriented culture, Christians, conservatives, and for some reason we can't make this connection that, like, there's all these great creators that make content in our own sort of, I don't want to say tribe, but like they're right there. But for some reason, you still go over to whatever, just go kind of conveniently go to Barnes and Noble, go to Target, whatever, pick up whatever books are there, and just and I think my vision is to have this, and I think one of the hard parts about that is finding individual artists. You kind of hear somebody kind of goes, "Hey, you hear about this guy? I think he's on the up and up. He's not a crazy pedophile or whatever. Maybe he's cool. You should read his. Maybe there's kids that like that book." So you have to like kind of word of mouth. That my goal is to bring a bunch of those people together, and also it's headed up by me and Eric. I mean, I feel like our careers speak for themselves. You look at our credits between Babylon Bee and Daily Wire and VeggieTales and stuff like that. You know where we're coming from.
Yeah.
And this is our project. We're heading it up, and so the goal is really to shove if we had the money to make a Netflix or like a full on streaming service in platform with apps and like everything. I mean, that's my dream. I want to make all kinds of kids content, but to me the book is the best. It's almost like I came up in this industry of pitching. Pitching is this huge process where you make all this amazing artwork and you write all this stuff, and then finally you go into a room of like 7 mostly diversity hires that are like in their 20s. I don't know why I'm pitching to these people. Like this rainbow of people with like little, like their hair's all gelled up in the front and they have these little glasses. And it's just the weirdest thing to do all this work on a pitch, and then that's who's getting it. I didn't make it for them. I made it for kids. And anyway, so my goal is to take that process and just bring it straight to the family. It's basically like a pitch book to families instead. So we're getting all kinds of content in it. And interrupt me. I can go on and on about this, but
well, I want to drill down into it a little bit, because you're bemoaning, and many people are bemoaning, the whole it's a reboot society where it's remakes and sequels and spin-offs and reimaginings. And even a fake Clint Eastwood interview teed off on that recently. Another story for another day. But is that as frustrating as that is, and as many of those pitch meetings where you're kind of talking to these glass-eyed suits, it's also opening up a lane for you, for someone like you, who's an original storyteller, who
hope so.
Has a whole team of original storytellers. I mean, is that the glass half full look at this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the culture's ripe for it. Like they're hungry for new content. I think it's making the connection. I think that people are starting to get it. For instance, in the media or in journalism, people are starting to put together, like, if you don't like the mainstream media, support independent journalists, people that you trust to tell you the truth. Well, we need to apply that to entertainment. And that's the thing that people still kind of just generally get their entertainment from the same place. And it's hard because it's hard to find like indie creators and stuff. And that's one thing I'm trying to make it really easy. I'm trying to put all these people into one book. And you're getting all kinds of content. And the goal is like, this is a book that any kid will open it up and they're going to love to go through it, because it has everything. It has multiple genres, multiple age groups. It's got everything from picture books, comics, chapter books. It's got lots of interactive elements to it. Prompts for finishing this story here, coloring this here, drawing this here, make up a character here, how to draw stuff. All of our, and a thing that we're going to do, which I want to keep as a value of this, because it's not just a book, it's really a company that we're starting. Every creator that contributes to the book will be featured in the book as sort of a member of a cast. Like, we'll have a page on them. So parents, instead of the way that the kids entertainment industry is now, where you really don't know who these people are making your books or kids content, who everybody is. The kids will know them by their work. We'll do little interviews with them in the book, and you'll find out, kind of what are their values, what are the things that are most important to them in life, and what are their favorite books or movies to watch with their kids, or what do they like as a dad, the kind of things like that. And really, like, I want people to, because having worked in the kids industry, I know that there are kind of two kinds of people in this industry. There are people that really like making stuff for kids, like that excites them, and that's actually the more rare type. There's the other people that just are bitter that they wanted to be, the next David Lynch or whatever, but they got stuck making Care Bears, and they despise children, and they want to get their deep messaging out. So it's just going through their reboot of Care Bears or whatever it is they're working on, rather than because they can't get their student film made.
Here's one question for you. I'm a film critic, and I will occasionally review films like Dog Man, which is not really aimed at me. I'm a middle-aged guy. And I enjoyed it, and I try my best to review it, but it's really not aimed at me. And it hard for me to kind of channel, okay, what would a child think of this? As someone, you're younger than me, but you got 4 kids, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not 12 anymore.
Yeah.
How do you tap into that inner child? I mean, is it something you actively do? Is it just something you just have sort of a sense of what kids find joy with? I'm kind of curious. How do you keep in tune with that audience as you get older?
I think part of it is being a dad of, my youngest is 7. So, and
Okay.
I'm constantly interacting with him.
He's your cheat sheet.
Yeah. I've definitely used them as cheat sheets. And
Uh-huh.
I have a book called Brave Ollie Possum, which is it's probably my proudest work so far. I'm really excited about what's going to happen with this. My book might explode. I think it's going to top, but, it's really my ultimate bedtime story. If you like reading bedtime stories to your kids, to me, it's a culmination for me of like everything I realize is good in reading a good bedtime story to your kid. Anyway, so and when I made that book, my kids who were older now,
Mm-hmm.
I'd read it to them until it got to a point where I noticed they were losing interest, and then I would go back to the drawing board. So I just used that. But also, I created a comic called Axe Cop about, gosh, now how long ago is it now?
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how long ago it is. Almost 15 years or 17 years or something crazy
Mm-hmm.
now. Oh, like 13. About 13 years, because it's almost as long as my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 29, my brother was 5, and he kept wanting to play with me. And the whole reason I had gone up there is because I kind of had this value. I was a single guy that I had my father, who we kind of were estranged. He left me when I was like 11.
Mm-hmm.
He just left, but he ended up having another family, and he had kids, and I had siblings, and I just kind of decided, I believe family's important. I'm going to try to visit as much as I can and be with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And this is around when I had like lost my jobs, and I was like, I really couldn't afford it. And I was kind of disillusioned I had just lived in Hollywood for maybe a full year at that point, and it had not been a great move. It had been, it was not going well.
Yeah.
So my brother kept saying, "Will you play Axe Cop with me?" And I was like, "What's Axe Cop?" Axe Cop is, I think it's his idea of if you combine a firefighter with a cop. It's like, yeah, he's a cop, but he uses a fireman's axe to fight crime. But finally, I agreed to do it, and his ideas were so hilarious to me. Like, they're just the things that kind of culminated from me asking him questions, getting his logic. That playtime became. I made a comic of it, and in my mind, I went, "This is not a sellable comic." I had been working on all these comics, reading Save the Cat, reading the story structure stuff. How do I make the great next Hollywood thing that could sell, be a movie? Axe Cop's not it. Like, for a kid's cartoon, you don't want a guy who looks like he's 50 with a mustache, with chopping heads off. They're never going to go for that. Also, it doesn't have the story structure of a movie, so like it's not sellable.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I think I had put one page up, and it went completely viral, and it was crazy. So I ended up getting a TV show on Fox, and multiple. We did like 6 volumes of graphic novels through Dark Horse Comics, but I spent a lot of time, and making Axe Cop really impacted how I make comics from that moment on, because I did realize one thing I learned is how inherent story structure is to our souls. Really, like when I would make stories with my little brother, he didn't know a thing about structure, but he kept finding the beats.
Yeah.
The more we played, because it's
Instinctually.
it's instinctual.
Yeah.
And also, like, why we do this, like, why do we make movies? Why do we make comics? It's because we want to go on this fun ride. We want to ask ourselves, what is so awesome? Like, what's the most awesome thing you can think of? Like, because in this medium, we can make it happen. So like, let's just think of what's the coolest thing ever and just do it. Like, and that's what Axe Cop is, just nonstop. So.
Gotcha. You've worked with 2 pretty major platforms, the Daily Wire and the Babylon Bee, and I don't want you to burn bridges or name names or anything like that, because I know you've left both organizations. But what did you take away from those experiences? I mean, I imagine you learned, you grew, maybe made connections that continue to this day. But working with, I think a lot of people would really love to work with those platforms to kind of get that experience. How did it shape you?
In very good ways, and there's other ways that I think I would take and I would do differently. So I think with the Babylon Bee, it was probably my favorite job I've ever had, because I love the diversity of it. I got to be on a created a podcast, got to be on it. I loved running that show. I really loved doing interviews. I never thought I'd get to be doing that kind of stuff. I love doing, we're doing video skits and sketches and doing animated work. So I'm doing voices, I'm animating, and I get to hire a couple animators to help out. I'm just, we're making books, we're cranking books out. We got to, I just got to do so much. But the thing that frustrated me the most at the Bee, which I think is a problem for a lot of conservative companies, is they get very. For one thing, I understand the economics of it.
Mm-hmm.
It gets very narrow, and content wise, like it just got so narrow, and it really kind of became this own the libs. So we're just every joke has to be an own the lib joke, and I really believe the Bee could be something bigger than purely a right, just a right of center. Because I think this is a thing I learned when I got out of the Bee and got a job at the Daily Wire. When I would tell people I worked at the Babylon Bee, I expected people who weren't on the right to be like, "Oh, ooh, the Babylon Bee," but like they have a reputation of just being a comedy. Because I think that the stories that really get out there,
Yeah.
normal people that aren't into politics still see them and think, "Oh, that's just a comedy site."
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't realize, because I know when I got the job at Daily Wire and started working at Daily Wire, then I got that like hissing vampire reaction, and realizing that these people didn't realize that like the Babylon Bee and Daily Wire are like, I mean, they're interchangeable values wise almost. I mean, but the Babylon Bee has a brand which I think could expand into real, National Lampoon type of branding. And so I always had that vision, and that always frustrated me that even if 80% of your stuff could be own the lib stuff, but just make like a 20% window of like, let's try stuff. And I think that's one thing that the left in Hollywood gets. Like, we think, you see these movies and things come out and you go, what were they thinking when they made that? Well, they have this spirit of like, let's just try stuff and see what happens. It's much harder to get people to do that on the right, I think.
Yeah.
So that for them. And then I think of the Daily Wire, there's so much about what they did I thought they got so right. I mean, something, and I think it was just like, bless their hearts, and they put so much money into it. But like, I think it was such a big undertaking. I think that the only way to really do it would be to start like we're doing, and that's everybody believes in it, but we're all doing it for free until it makes money. So this book might explode, which I'm hoping is going to explode into a full-on kids entertainment company. Everybody that's in it just believes in it. No one's making money till it gets to the point where it's profitable, and so that way, I mean, we're already churning out so much content just in the books as we prepare to launch. I'm in a productive, like, which I love. I mean, like, I'm in a whirlwind right now of just productivity, which it's amazing when you put so many people in different positions of staff and executives and this and that and all these different salaries and all these different lawyers, how slow the process becomes where like you're actually getting paid to sit and do nothing, and you're just waiting to be told we can finally work again. I do not want to create that environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, sometimes it needs to be a labor of love at its origin.
Yeah.
And then it blows up into something that maybe is economically powerful. I wanted to ask you about the right of center creative landscape right now, because I mean, you could argue it barely existed 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And now there are the Bees, the Daily Wires, I mean, the Blaze. There are all these different platforms that are creating art in certain areas and certain venues. And yet you just kind of said, maybe we shouldn't be going in that ideological direction. It should be more expansive. Can you do both? I mean,
that's the hard thing. That's the hard thing about this, because the left doesn't do that. They do insert their stuff in here and there, but they don't go, we're the left wing media, for all your left leaning needs, it's like, and so that drives me crazy, because the hard thing economically is it's almost impossible, like to create something that if you have a right wing audience, to just say like, we're making great content. They don't go, well, why? Even though they all consume it, they all spend tons of money on great content, but they give it to liberal Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing. And part of it is because it's just not as simple. It's not as easy and simple. So it's one of the reasons I'm really trying to, I believe like the homeschool audience, especially once they see these books, they're going to go, oh, okay. Like, this is fun. Like, this book is just everything. Because I'm really like every artist we meet with that we're bringing on, and we have some great names, and I'm not even trying to get all ideologically aligned people. I mean, me and Eric are the editors, so we decide what goes in and what doesn't. I just want stuff that's genuinely good. Doesn't cover any of this political stuff that I don't think kids need to get in their heads into. If I want my kids to learn about like the things that I really kind of there are things I want to propagandize my kids with, but I want to do it between me and them, and my, I don't want to sneak it in some back. I don't know. this book is about entertaining and about creative, like working their creative muscles, getting them to interact creatively. So we got Doug Tenaple, Earthworm Jim, Mike Nelson, who worked on Mystery Science Theater. He was the Human. I don't know if you remember that show.
Of course.
But he's going to be writing some stuff with us. Randomly, Jack Handy has written a few kind of short stories for us. We have this great team of all kinds of people that I've worked with, different parts of the industry, and Eric's worked with. So anyway, I got lost. I remember where I was going.
Also, the Kickstarter is available right now. People can check it out. Just go to This Book Might Explode and you'll find it there. Where would you like this to be in 5 years if you can kind of, dream big? And I think you kind of hinted at, to use an MCU term, a shared universe where it's not just a printed book. It's expanding. What's your vision for that?
Yeah, I mean, the book is really like, I almost see it as being sort of like Scholastic for homeschoolers, or like it's not just made to be dedicated to homeschoolers, but that it's in homes and it's a selection of stuff, and it's going to keep growing. So like, we have different storylines going on in each book right now. Those will finish, and then we'll publish those as actual books so that there'll be this building library. So I don't want to just be a book company. But I think, my vision for this company at first was like a box of like all kinds of, maybe it comes with like a toy and a big book, and then maybe like a book of bedtime stories or a joke book and like some other sticker packs and stuff. It's just a cool box that's kind of like, Mark Rober, he does the engineering Crunch Labs. He basically sends this box. You get like subscribe to a box, and he makes kids excited about engineering. So they bring something you put all together.
Yeah.
I want to do that for creativity. So like, I want to see your kid gets it and they interact with creating a character, or drawing, trying to draw this, or writing a story, or finishing a comic or whatever. Different types. That's kind of my vision, is just the creative interaction. That it's not just creators telling your kids what to read, but like you're getting to participate.
Gotcha.
And from there, I really want to get into animated content, video content, movies, everything. I think that this thing's built to expand. The way that I came up with this idea, I started at theme park and went backwards. I went, okay, if we could have our own theme park, what's the first step? And I went all the way back to this book. So I go, I don't know if I'll make it there, but that's the roadmap I've laid out.
Yeah. One last question. If you have you're a dad, if you have a son or daughter, maybe they're approaching 18 years of age, they're thinking about their career, their future, and they have a creative spark within them and they really want to go in that direction. Any advice you'd give them as far as what are the best ways to kind of go about that? It's an open-ended question for sure, but just given the work you do, your imagination, the fact that you kind of want to spark it in other people.
Right.
There's a young Ethan Nicolle out there. What do you tell him?
When I was first trying to figure out how to make it into the industry, I realized I went to my very first San Diego Comic-Con way back, and I brought my portfolio, and I stood in all these long portfolio lines and got rejected. And I realized as I was there that there's two ways into that industry. There's the Jim Lee way, where you're an amazing draftsman and you can draw the perfect Batman against all the other Batman artists in the entire world. You draw such a good Batman. Or you're like Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. They created Ninja Turtles, like one of the most original, just a concept. And their art compared to everyone else in the world wasn't great. Yeah, but they just made a great concept. The indie route. And I realized that I was way more geared towards the indie route. And then I realized later that indie comics had become webcomics. That's why I made Axe Cop a webcomic. But I've learned, having been in the position of hiring people and looking at creatives, and that even if you don't get a huge viral hit or a huge audience, if you have a body of work online that shows your work ethic and your genuine creativity, it shows what you're capable of, at some point, there's a very good chance that will serve you well, even if you don't get a huge, because I don't even think of me as having a big online audience. Like, there's a lot of people that know who I am and know my work. But when I post a joke or a comic, I'd have a very small audience that like follows that, it's tough. It's so competitive. But I have this body of work that if someone's looking to hire me, they click search my name up. And so you want that associated with you. I would say getting your, instead of trying to get into companies and saving all your work and trying to show it to the big wigs or the executives at the desk, they're all looking online at your portfolio, what's online. Like, that's just become the proving ground. I know when I was at Babylon Bee, people would try to get jobs as writers there just by sending in an article or whatever. The guys that always did the best and got the work were guys who already were running their own little satire site that maybe no one was reading, but it proved they could do it. They were funny.
Yeah.
They just hadn't found their audience yet. And those were the guys that worked the best.
And also it shows that they were dedicated enough to kind of create that body of work on their own.
Yeah,
because that's a starter's pistol or a new job hire. So.
Right. And that's the hardest thing to find is people with that ethic, with that drive.
That fire is amazing, and I always appreciate that. But Ethan, thank you for joining the show. Of course, This Book Might Explode is the new project. It is on Kickstarter right now. Just go to Kickstarter.com, punch in This Book Might Explode. You'll find it. Support independent artists, especially good ones like yourself.
Thank you. Also, and there's 32 page preview on there. You can see what's going to be inside, because that's
great.
One drawback of this is it's a book of stuff, but you don't know what it is.
No, excellent.
So it's in there. You'll see a bunch of it.
Great. And where could they find you on X? What was the handle there? I want
it's my AxeCop handle, so it's AXECOP. Just
great.
AxeCop.
All righty. Well, thank you so much. I hope we'll talk again in a couple of years, maybe as this project expands and reaches all the different areas and platforms that you're teasing, because I think it'd be exciting. But wish you all the best, and I wish you didn't need a job doom to kind of spark your greatest efforts, but it is what it is, and you're doing it. So
yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Your character actor of the week is J.K. Simmons. Well, that's it for the show this week. Again, thank you to Radio America for having me as part of their great podcast lineup. And do check out HollywoodinToto.com. It is my website now in its 11th year. And the site, like this show, is the right take on entertainment. We don't want to scare away our center-left friends for sure. And like this program, there's plenty of material that is apolitical, enjoyable for all. But, it is transparently a right-of-center outlet. We cover stories that aren't being covered in the mainstream media. If something's missing in Variety or The Hollywood Reporter, chances are it's going to be on this podcast or at HollywoodinToto.com. Well, I am off to visit my mother, so I am going to have a spectacular week no matter what. And of course, you do the same as well. Doctor's orders.